Hi guys, welcome to this video in which I will break down what happened during, here we go, UFC Fight Night Anderson versus Błachowicz 2, also known as UFC Fight Night 167, also known as UFC on ESPN Plus 25. So now the confusion's out of the way. It was an interesting fight to begin with. I was curious to see how it was going to play down, and this is one of the things that always amazes me, that MMA fighters still made this mistake. Corey Anderson kind of messed up his own life here by throwing a naked leg kick. We'll get to that immediately. So what happened? Well, what you see before this phase happened is that Anderson was moving forward, putting a lot of forward pressure, using his jab, using a little bit of his striking. I think just before this phase here, he threw one leg kick where you saw that Błachowicz was already paying attention to what was going on there with that leg kick, and he did a really small outside leg block. So basically what it boils down to is Błachowicz was just watching and waiting for a counter. He did a couple of attacks before that, but not all that much. And what we see here in this last few seconds of the fight is that Anderson moves forward as Błachowicz is moving back. So we're going to go bit by bit, and the timing is important. See there, they're moving forward, Błachowicz moves back, and you'll see that all of a sudden he's going to plant. And you'll see that in a second, and the timing is really critical. It's where he plants. This is the moment, okay? And you see that at this stage, his center line is not moving backwards anymore. So he's staying in range, but Anderson is still moving forward. Now I want you to look at the range here. The camera angle is a little bit deceptive, but you see that he's already in striking range. He's already in jab and cross range here. So whatever Błachowicz throws as far as straight punches go, Anderson is going to eat that. He's in range for that. Despite that, I'm going to go back a little bit. You'll see that here, Błachowicz plants, and then Corey is going to decide to throw that leg kick. So you see the plant happen, and then he fires the leg kick. Now, a couple of points that I'm going to mention as well. First, the dropped hand. Be careful of that. Obviously, this leaves a line wide open for a punch to the face. So that is a critical mistake. And here, the distance as well. And you can see that the right hand, I mean, he's putting everything in the kitchen sink in that right hand. Błachowicz, he's leaning forward, weight on the lead leg, and he's just torquing as hard as he can to get a knockout shot, and that's what he gets. So it lands, and then we see that Corey Anderson goes down, he crumbles, and we're pretty much done here. There's a quick follow-up here on the ground, just that quick hammer shot, which I like hammer punches like this because you don't have to commit. I do not enjoy as much this forward-leaning posture, but it works and the angle is good. You can see that Anderson is like this, and Błachowicz is basically getting a 90-degree angle on center line, which means that Corey doesn't have that many opportunities to strike back, but still a little bit tricky. I would have preferred him to move a little bit more over here, Błachowicz, as opposed to staying at this spot, but still it worked just fine. He knocked him out, done. So that's a knockout, and obviously the ref intervenes, and we're done here. Now, moving back, and I'm going to point something else out here. Same thing happens, he moves back. The timing with the plant and then the reaction by Anderson with the leg kick is very, very, it's a narrow window of opportunity that he sees for him to try that leg kick on. So it's easy to miss. That's my point. So he moves back, and you can see that the hands are in a good position. He's been threatening with the jab. You'll see that the plant happens here. Okay, and this is when Corey moves in. Now remember, he's already really close. That's the first part. And I want you to track this left hand here, see what happens with that. So I'm going to go back a frame or two. You see that the left hand drops as soon as he throws the leg kick. Notice the line here. This is, the punch is right here. And then you can see that the opening is right there. And there is no defense with the right hand, no defense with the left hand, an open line, a shot, and that's a knockout waiting to happen. So that's first things first. So one of the critical mistakes fighters make with the leg kick is exposing their head here. You can do two things, and this is a blatant plug for my the leg kick for MMA book, blatant plug. You can get it on Amazon. I'll put a link in the description where I go into detail in defense, offense, and also the tactics that you can use to make the leg kick an efficient weapon for you in MMA. And Anderson is just making several mistakes, instinctive, without thinking about it. I'm sure he's a good fighter, but at this level, every little detail matters, and you get punished severely for dropping the ball even a little bit. So just pointing out where you can avoid this kind of thing. So this dropped hand here could have been either to the side or in front of his face, depending on the type of leg kick he used. Now he's using the half hip kick, which means that he doesn't fully turn his hip over. I'm going to blow this up a little bit and see that you can spot what his heel is doing. I want you to look at the direction that his heel is turning into. It's facing backwards, right? So we're going to go a little bit forward and just look at what his leg does, his support foot. See, there's no real pivot on the support foot. This is the moment where the kick has landed and the punch comes back. So I'm going to go back a little bit. So he plants, Corey steps on his foot, and watch that back heel. There's hardly any pivot. So that is the main thing. So this is a half hip leg kick. There is a time and place for that, but not when you're crossing the distance and closing the gap, and getting closer to your opponent the way he's doing here. Because the half hip leg kick by default means you are more in range than you need to be in contrast with the full hip turn. So he's too close here anyway to begin with, and you can see that the heel is still pointing backwards. That means the hips cannot rotate fully, which means that you'll need to be a lot closer. I'm gonna zoom out again. You need to be a lot closer to your opponent, which by default means that you are vulnerable to that right hand here, or the jab, or other weapons coming in on you. So that's the first thing. That's the second thing I have to mention. And then third one, so notice his center line and the alignment of his spine. So he's pretty much in an upright position. Pretty good, it's fine. Now notice how his spine moves as he throws a kick. So he's leaning off to the side, to his left side. He's going to lean off to the left side and slightly forward at the same time. So I'm going to go slow. Notice what happens. This is where he does like a crunching movement. There's still no punch landed yet. So you can see that he's in an upright position. He moves to his left and forward towards his lead leg. He still hasn't been hit. He still hasn't been hit. Still not. Still not. And this is right the moment before he lands the kick. Where his head at, it is forward and to the left. So he has brought his head closer into range of Błachowicz here, who exploits that as a perfect counter with the right hand. So when you throw the half hip, at the very least, you need to have your hands up and make sure that you do not advance your head instinctively as you throw it. Now, part of the reason is that the kick is kind of jammed, so his leg here can't really connect correctly with Błachowicz's lead leg, and it kind of gets messed up and messes up his technique, and that's one of the reasons why he leans this way, but it just makes everything worse. He closes in, and it's almost as if he's doing a frontal collision with his head into that punch, which makes the impact even harder. So this is the kind of thing that you absolutely have to avoid. If you do use the half hip, you have to be careful with it. Because that's what gets you knocked out if you don't use it. Well, expect counters when you use the half hip, and the counters will come fast because you need to be close. So again, and then Błachowicz misses with the left hook, and Corey falls down, and that's pretty much all she wrote. So again, look at a big hammer fist here, overhead. He's in a good posture, and he can really put the smack down on him, and that's just a really excellent finishing shot. I'm going to move away. So we'll see it here a little bit again. Look at this distance. Look at the range, right? So they're pretty much getting into the pocket as Corey is advancing. So at this range, if you use the half hip, you're gonna be close to the guy. You have to expect counters. The golden rule, again, blatant plug for my book, chapter 12, the basic tactics, is that you want to throw the leg kick when the opponent has the least amount of chance of blocking it. That's when you want to throw the leg kick. Why? Ask Anderson Silva. You guys remember that? What happened when he hit that lead leg kick against Weidman? He got blocked. His shin was just broken in half. You do not throw the leg kick just out of the blue. You have to set it up. Now, most people will say do not lead with the leg kick and think that you can never throw a naked leg kick. That is not true. You have to set up the leg kick and throw it at a moment when the opponent cannot block it and counter you, which is not the case here. That's not what Anderson did. You'll see the plant once again. And then from here, he's just not going to move in. So this is when Błachowicz plants. And if you see a guy plant, you know that there's something coming at you right away, or at the very least, there's a good chance he does. And notice the distance here. I'm going to draw this. So this is the moment that Błachowicz plants. Look at the distance. I'm going to go slow, frame by frame. Okay, you'll notice that Błachowicz still hasn't moved, and Corey is still moving closer. See how everything here is crunching down? Notice that the distance is now so much smaller between them. So that means that this big overhand right, or just a hook here, or a straight punch, anything that Błachowicz is going to throw, he's going to be in range for it. The only chance that Anderson has right here is if Błachowicz misses and goes over the top, or falls short, or goes wide, or whatever, and just misses his technique. But that's counting on your opponent to mess things up as opposed to you doing things right. So don't count on that. So again, see here the position, and here you can see a little bit better. I'm going to go back so you see it better. This is alignment, so the spine is in a normal position. Got pretty much a straight line here. I want to go forward. Look at this crunched position here. This is where he's completely rounded off his back, and he is leaning both forward and to his left, and that is right into the path of that right fist. It's like a frontal collision. The other part, like I mentioned, again, look at the leg here and look at the hip position. This is the half hip turn. This is not a full hip turn, which again by default means you have to come closer. So all this combined is what led to the knockout, and this is it's a really powerful blow. I mean, guys, these are light heavyweights. They hit hard. Even if they don't have good technique, they've got the mass, the speed, the strength to just knock you out with one punch, even when they're tired. So got to be extra careful and work on defense. And again, you see that Corey's pretty much out of it, and poor guy. I mean, he gets this really powerful hammer fist here blasted into his face, and the fight is correctly stopped. So that's it. Once again, leg kick, one of my favorite techniques. That's why I wrote the book about it, because I love that technique. I used it plenty when I was competing, and even to this day in sparring, my students hate it when I do it with them. But you have to set it up correctly. You have to be careful, you have to think things through, you have to think tactically, and you cannot just throw it when your opponent is in a position to counter. You need to set it up. So let's keep that as a lesson that we take away from this fight here. It'll be interesting to see where both fighters go. I wish them all the best. Great fighters. Sad to see it happen like this. It would have been, I think, an even better match. It would have been a very interesting fight if this would have gone past the first round. Alas, it wasn't to be. So we'll see if Błachowicz is going to get his turn fighting John Jones, who he called out. We'll see. I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon, but he called him out. So that was interesting. Anderson, I think he's going to have to, go back to the drawing board a little bit and see how he recovers from this. I hope he comes back. Also a fighter I like a lot. Good guys, both of them. But this is the fight game. This is how it happens. So you have to move on, win or lose, and try to always get better. Okay, that's it, guys. As always, you want to support the channel, subscribe, hit the notifications, hit the little bell that you see, so make sure you get all the notifications when I post something new. Go to the Facebook page. You can go on Instagram. All that kind of stuff is in the description. And failing that, I will talk to you next time.